I've been asked to speak to you guys today about the new Australian dream. Well, you'll all be relieved to know that not only am I Australian, I also have a dream. And my dream is to create things that people love. You see, I grew up on Lego and MacGyver, and my entire life there is only one thing that I've wanted to do, and that is to make useful things that people might one day wonder, how did they ever live without? Why? Well, to me, the coolest feeling in the world is to see somebody use something that you've created and find it useful. It feels awesome. They don't even have to say anything to you. You just have to see it, and you feel useful. It feels awesome to feel useful. We all know that you can't drive a nail into a bit of wood using your fist. You need a hammer. Can you imagine being the guy who invented the hammer? How awesome would that feel? The whole world would reach out to you and say, "Nice one, dude. That is really useful." So, on one hand, you might think to yourself, "Alex, your dream is not going to cure cancer." And I know that, and I'm okay with that, because my dream is to design things that people love, and hopefully, we will cure the world of junk. So, to start off, I want to ask you guys a question. In your pockets right now, on silent, who has one of these? Pretty much all of us. No surprises there. And the reason is because we find these things incredibly useful. We use them every single day. Every single day, some of us get up, and before we get out of bed in the morning, we look at our phones. Now, there was a time when all they did was make phone calls, which was pretty cool in itself. But now we have apps for this and that, and it makes them so useful. We use them all the time, we use them really every day, and we wonder how we ever lived without them. Yep, we love our phones. So, if we're going to design products, how do we make sure that what we create ends up at the top end of the scale with the awesome, useful things like our phones, and not down the other end of the scale with things like this? Old Billy Bass. You may have got one for Christmas one year. Now, if you walked past Billy Bass, he had a motion sensor and a button related to designs. And what would happen is Billy would come to life and start singing, "Take me to the river, put me in the water." Yep, it was pretty bloody annoying. Now, after the first time you heard the joke, and that's pretty much all you got out of it, it was no longer funny. And in fact, after the third or fourth time you heard Billy Bass sing, it was so annoying you never wanted to hear it again. The problem with old Billy here was he didn't do much, you didn't do it often, and you never wanted to do it again. Billy is a quintessential piece of junk. So, how do we make sure that what we design ends up at the top and not down the bottom? Well, there was one of the world's design greats was a guy named Dieter Rams. Now, Dieter Rams worked for a company named Braun from the 1970s right through today and is an absolute god of design. He developed 10 principles of design called the 10 Principles of Good Design. Now, for those of you who don't know Dieter Rams, in the design world, he's a little bit like Mick Jagger. He's been around for ages, he's a superstar, and he has always rocked. Now, Dieter's 10 principles state that good design is innovative, it makes a product useful, it's aesthetic, it makes a product understandable, is unobtrusive, is honest, is long-lasting, is thorough to the last detail, is environmentally friendly, and is as little designed as possible. That's a fair bit to remember. But these 10 principles are the building blocks for some of the coolest designs you'll see today in companies like Apple and Dyson. It's this minimalistic design principle that we've all embraced. Now, after studying this for a long time, I now believe it's even simpler than that. I believe now it boils down to just three really simple things that will tell us whether or not something we make ends up as something people love or another piece of junk. Now, for the last 10 years, I have absolutely been one of the lucky ones. I get to go to work every day and have a crack at fulfilling my dream. I work with some of the most talented people in Australia, even on the planet. And one of those guys is a designer named Phil Howson. And now Phil and I spend our time together, well, debating, arguing, about the pros and cons of pretty much everything. You see, together, our design process starts with a problem. Unless we can find a problem that is worth solving, we won't even consider designing a something. Along the way, we always ask ourselves the same questions. What does this product do? Does that matter? Will anyone care? Is it useful? Most importantly, has it been done before? Can we find anything remotely like it? Will people use it often? And can we make it in a way that will still mean in 10 years from now that people will still love it? Will people love it? Now, if I've learned anything by doing this for the last 10 years, it's that designing things that people love, it's pretty bloody hard. It's about as challenging as it gets. But, ironically, the formula for doing it is really quite simple. It all boils down to just 3 simple things. Now, these 3 simple things are absolutely critical. Without all 3 of them, unfortunately, all we're going to end up with is more junk. You need all of them. Now, these 3 simple things are, 1, how useful is the product? What does it actually do? And how awesome is that? Number 2, how often do we get to use it? How often do we get to or want to experience the awesome thing that this product does? And thirdly, how long does it last? How long are we going to get to keep experiencing this awesome thing that the product does? It all boils down to this, guys. In a nutshell, if you want to make things that people love, you need to make them useful, that they'll use often, and for a very long time. Now, you ask yourself, give me an example, Alex. Well, here I am. My wife just recently bought herself a cute little pair of ballet flats. Now, for those of you who don't know, they are just shoes without heels. Duh. Right? And as far as she's concerned, they're an investment piece and she loves them. Why? Because they tick all those boxes. 1, they're a simple design, so they match all her outfits and she's going to get a lot of use out of them. 2, you have to wear shoes every day, so she gets a lot of use out of them because they match all her outfits. And because they're comfortable and well made, they're going to last for a very long time. They tick all of her boxes and she loves them. Me, on the other hand, I got a whippersnipper for Christmas. And I spend my weekends now going around the backyard, trimming up the lawns and making them look amazing. For me, 1, it would be impossible to do this with my bare hands. I've tried doing it with scissors and it sucks. 2, I use it every weekend, so it's really useful. I use it a lot. And 3, because we bought a good brand that I know is going to last for ages, I know I'm going to get a lot of use out of it. So, why does this matter? Why does any of this matter? Well, if we can understand what goes into designing awesome products, we can also understand what goes into designing junk. And why is that important? Well, if you add up all of the factors that go into either making something awesome or something that is a piece of junk, timesing out the 3 factors, you can understand how not to make junk. Add them up, multiply them, it doesn't matter. The higher the score, the more we love the thing. The lower the score, the bigger a piece of junk it is. And unfortunately, this is where junk ends up. Hard rubbish day on the front of our place. When things are no longer used, they become junk. Junk finds more junk. And eventually junk gets together and ends up in the ground. We dig it up and we dig up the ground and we put the junk in there. And it's all this junk that's using up our resources faster than ever before. It's all this junk that's creating environmental messes like the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And it's all this junk that we're surrounded with in our everyday life. Check out this. This is a table that we bought as our office desks for our office desk. We got them from IKEA. It's only been a year, and without much more than my elbows, a keyboard, and a mouse on top of it, it now looks like a banana. When your table looks like this, it is a piece of junk. So, for me, I look at it and think, for a company that reportedly uses 1% of all the world's commercially fallen timber, there's a whole lot of junk out there, a whole lot of banana tables. Look, I even cut a section out of it so you can see what I'm talking about. As far as I'm concerned, the designers of this product need to take responsibility for the fact they didn't do their job. They didn't make it last. Because all this is laminated cardboard. And this is why we end up with so much junk. When you start your design process with a price, it is junk that you will create, 9 times out of 10. Or as my father used to say, you get what you pay for in this world. Now, one of the problems here is that the companies who make all this junk, well, regardless of what happens to the the products they make, whether it ends up as junk or something we love, they got paid. They got paid before we figured that out. Right? The people making banana-shaped tables, they got paid. The guys making Billy Bass the singing fish that was so annoying, he got paid. So you know what these companies are thinking? Oh my God, this is what people want. Quick, we better make some more of it. Right? This is the death spiral. The more we buy, the more they produce. It could be a death spiral. Wrong. There is actually a solution to it, and it's very, very simple. Now, whilst I love the idea of all the designers in the world banding together and saying, you know what, guys, let's do this. From this day forth, we are going to stop designing junk. Unfortunately, it's never going to be enough. Because the product designers, they work for the companies. And the companies who keep making this junk only keep making it because we keep buying it. So, like all good ideas, it might seem obvious now, but the cure to junk is for us to stop buying it. If you're not going to love it for a very long time, don't buy it. If you can't see yourself using it for 10 years from now, don't buy it. Never buy something based on a price tag. Only buy something if you're going to love it. If it's useful, something you'll use often and for a very long time. What do you reckon? Am I dreaming? Thank you.